Breach intrusion has commenced. Upload complete.
What is up, Static Gamers? It is 3-1 Static Gaming, so I apologize if I sound a little quiet. I'm gonna up the volume just a bit, just so you guys can hear me, but it's kind of late at night, and my roommate's also gotta try and get some sleep, but I needed to get a video out for you guys, because I can't keep delaying the video, so I'm gonna get this done the best way. Nice thing is, this is kind of an introductory video. Now, originally I was going to do a showcast of some of the Halo 5 things, but today's the first video of Forge creation, and we're going to be using Halo MCC for today. And the reason why I want to do all of this is because Halo Infinite Season 3 is going to be coming out with Forge content. And not only did I want to kind of teach people how I create content, I also wanted to show other game content. So, just so you know, Fortnite is going to be one of those that I will dabble into with this recording method that I'm doing, and then so will Halo Infinite, and then of course we've got Halo MCC on that list of games as of right now that have created methods. I do have a few other games that are in here that as of right now I'm not sure have any creative content, and we will be kind of doing the same thing. So for a lot of people, I know that Forge is kind of a mixed topic for people, because in some cases I've heard people say things like with Halo 5 it's complicated, while other people say I've heard that they love it. And with the fact that we're knowing we're getting Forge in Halo Infinite, I kind of wanted to go over on how people can learn to create their own content for those who actually care about that stuff. But not only that, can get into a creative mindset or even a practical mindset, because I also know people who can Forge but can't whatsoever dabble into the scripting, and scripting seems to be it's going to be more complex within Halo Infinite. I would like to get into Halo 5 scripting a little bit, help people realize that it's a little more simpler than it seemed. So for this video type, I have 3 possible formats. Today we're going to be using the first format, is where I do commentary as I Forge. If you guys preferred this video, definitely let me know by hitting the like button. And then the second method that I have is where I kind of montage it, but then I explain, so this will allow me to record over time. Options 2 and 3 will take a lot longer to get the videos out, but it'll allow me to do like a montage, stop, talk about what I did, and then montage again, and then show gameplay. With this method and the third method, it's the same thing except without explaining it. And it's just kind of like how I did my speed forges back in the day, but I'd rather do it this way, so you guys can get into it, so you can actually learn a few things. And I'm actually going to show you guys a few ways to do some pretty cool things. So real quick, excuse me, drinking a soda. I will dabble in probably all of these games, with Halo 3 being the early modification. I don't really have any grandiose major maps when it comes to this, but I will show you a particular map that I have made within Forge, so you can get an idea what my creative direction is when we go to play these maps, because every map is built with a specific design or rule and deny it, and everything you create needs to have an ideal behind it. So Halo 3 maps were pretty simplistic back in the day and were limiting, so making something like a raid map in Halo 3 is kind of limited, and as you can see, I got a little creative. Now, a lot of the unique things, like the shields being here, are things that I put in to help balance out the map, whatnot. And you also probably wonder why those vehicles are there. Blah, blah, blah. It was all a critical thinking moment. While I'm not going to go through and break down the entirety of the video, the basic concept was our backs were against the wall, while everyone else raids in. It takes the concept of infection and puts it into Slayer, where players are on the defense while everyone else in the lobby raid you. Except in this case, you have a whole team defending while everyone else raids you, and it's not team based; it's actually free for all based. But you operate as a team, so it's kind of like you have to know what your team's names, call outs, stuff like that are kind of important. And this map is basically designed to be like a choke point. And that's kind of like a quick rundown. There's the simple base map. Halo 3 is actually one of the earliest forms. There is the earliest forms of Forge, I think, aside from like Halo 2 Vista, which I never played. I started forging in Halo 3, and a lot of my maps not at all looked this good. Not to mention, I don't know if it's still there, rotation snap was not existing in the original Halo 3. So you had to sit here and like manually mess with things and put them down, and that's where the grid in Sandbox came from, which also became a thing with Halo Reach, if you guys remember the grid, and it also exists in Halo 4. Now, when it comes to Halo 4, I'm only going to briefly probably touch that one, because a lot of the features in that one is similar to Halo Reach, aside from like custom zone traits and stuff like that. We could get into objectives and stuff like that a little more. I think it'll be a lot easier to understand Halo 4 because it was more of an objective based, and I might even use a particular mod to kind of show you and highlight some of the high days that I had with that, but my main focus is actually going to be on Reach. I think that's the best place to start when it comes to forging, and then later on coming into Halo 3 and see if you can make these kind of same things. But yeah, when you first start making your maps, they're not going to look as great as this, and as a matter of fact, they might even look better than this once you start actually getting into this. But everything, like every little detail in your map, is something that you need to think about when you do begin to forge it. But every map, the point of showing this is that every map starts with an idea, and this one is the idea of a raid of, well, what if there's a 6-man team that's on free-for-all that versus everyone else in the lobby, and it's supposed to be chaotic, and like it's kind of like this scenario. It's like, what if one player has all the OP things versus everyone else? That's even a concept of itself. There's and infection methods. When you make your map, you gotta think about what is this supposed to be, because if you don't start with an idea, a lot of times your maps aren't going to end up that great. This is actually, Halo 3 is actually also where Race began. For those of you who may know the HaloTracks.org community, they are technically still around, but I don't think anybody really uses it anymore. I do have an account over there, and if y'all are interested, I can pop a link to the website down in the description below. But they do Forge communities, and you can find some really amazing racetracks for both Halo 3 and and MCC that just date from maps all the way back in the day. Now I'm going to load up a couple more things. I don't know how relatively loud the game is to my voice, so I do apologize that if it's overpowering. Alright, so we're going to move over to Halo Reach, and we're going to talk about some of the finer points of maps so you can get. So I'm going to show you guys an objective style based map. Now I'm actually going to use Ridgeline one for this one. So I made an invasion map on Ridgeline called Deforestation with my, I don't remember which one it is, but we'll load it with Invasion 3.0 here, and we'll come in. So most of the time when you're forging with a game type in classic Halo, you generally have to select the game type that you're trying to make with this map. So like if you want it to be a base game type anyway, if you want it to be invasion, you need to make sure it's invasion that's selected, or otherwise you won't be able to modify objectives. Just to briefly go into the objective stuff and the creative design, though, as you can see, I went with the theme with these elites are obviously great stealth, and they go into combat where humans have to engage, and the elites eventually like upgrade and move in, and we can easily teach you guys on how to set objectives. Now, Halo Reach is the basics of objective base modes. I think is a great place to start when you start getting to learn basic scripting for Halo 5, because the same concepts that you can use with Advance can be utilized. So anything with minimum count and max count, I don't see a lot of people utilize those. Later on can become very important, especially with game modes with Invasion, where you're using spawn sequence, which is almost equivalent to that of script channels in Halo 5, which is why I was able to pick up scripting fairly easy. Now, I wasn't able to do anything complex like making custom AI, but it'll give you a basic understanding and spawning things. Also note, like, every forge is different. Most people I know use objective zones for making spawn points, but I like to use initial loadout cameras, because that tells me, hey, out of this map, that's a spawn. Versus if I came over here and went, oh, that's an objective. I noticed a lot of people, like in other Invasion maps that I noticed, they'll come to their objectives and they'll use a hill marker instead of an initial loadout from spawning. Not only is it because it's from spawning, it makes more sense to me. It's just, it organizes my forge layout a little better, so like when I come over here, I can tell the difference between this and this, versus if they were both objectives, I'd be like, well, which is which? Especially if any other forgers decide to come grab my map, they can easily tell the difference in weapon placements and things like that. Anyway, you can kind of see the theme with the map that I went like this. Is little Unity bunker that they have to hold, and you've got a more open out area. And if you're wondering how I actually forged this much into Ridgeline, because this is well beyond the budget, as you can see down below it says 0. I actually modded this to do this, and I will probably even show you guys how to do that, which we may actually be allowed to utilize with Halo Infinite as well. It's something that we're going to try in the future, but you can see the theme, and it works. This map was actually one of my favorites, and I say one of my better well-forged maps. And I would say that the Covenant may be slightly more powerful, but I don't think that's a disadvantage, because in this case, the elites are the attackers, not the defenders, and a lot of the points like this, like in the final round, the humans also spawn below, so the fact that elites have a little bit of an edge to grab the objective makes it a little more balanced, in my opinion. And I have different styles of invasion maps as show, but for now, we're going to get into the guts of this video, because I don't want this to get to being too long, as we are already 13 minutes in. So my goal is to probably make this no more than 30 minutes. So today, we're actually going to do a unique thing. So I have a USB drive, and I'm going to plug this into my laptop, and I'm going to show you guys how you can get your old 360 maps into MZC, which is a bonus to a lot of this. Now, I connected the USB device, and I'm going to program that you're going to need called Horizon. Here it is. This is what it looks like. It's still available today. All you need to do is transfer any maps or files from any of the games into a hard drive using the Xbox 360, and it will let you get your maps on over. This is the only way that I've known that you can get your existing maps. Now, because I am going to be modifying Halo MCC, I'm going to bring this to the main menu. And I do not have anti-cheat disabled, so I will not be using the mod method today to show you guys how to get better forge antics for Halo Reach. But what I will do is eventually show you that. Maybe I'll do that in the next video, show you guys how to enable the mod bases. Anyways, what we're going to do is once you got your USB looped in, if you set it up correctly when you're on the 360, you should see that it appears automatically. And got everything. So I'm going to go to games, and as you can see, I only have Halo 4 files. All of my Halo 4 files are in here, and I forgot that it takes a minute to let this load. I got to be careful or I could crash it. Now, the thing is, I'm going to bring up this moment. I hate how MCC has a limit. Now, look at all of this for Halo 4 alone. This is just Halo 4. These are all maps, or most of them. Some of them are game types, but these are mostly maps and game types. You can clearly tell I have more than the 50 allotted for Halo MCC. Yes, did it increase load times? Absolutely. Same with Halo Reach. Halo Reach is even worse. I have even more in Halo Reach. And the thing is, I have literally 1,000 maps that are my own in Halo Reach, and then about 400 to 500 of them that were made from other people. The fact that MCC limits the number of maps you can have, unlike Halo Reach, I'd rather wait for the load times. And the thing is, you could even take these, go to your file browser. I already have mine selected, and these are your local files, right? This is where, you know, your map and game types are said. Like, I have a map right now. You can take these. Then once you do that, you can go to PC. I think I'm on D data drive, Steam Library App 2, Steam Apps, Common, Halo Master Chief Collection, Halo Reach, and then we just go either to map_variants and rename the file to .mvar and put it here, and you can have an infinite number of maps, which is nice. Like, I got Space Orbital Elevator here, Obelisk, New Mombasa. You should see Deforestation in here. I believe I put, Deforestation, the map I just showed you, is in here. That was all a map that wasn't native to MCC, that was imported via this, and you can do the same thing with game variants, such as my Invasion 3.0, wherever that is at. That should be in here, which it was a modded game type. And then I can also show you guys how to do modded game types for Halo Reach. Only Halo Reach. I'm not sure how to do it for Halo MCC, but this is how you would get the file. We'll go to this here in a minute. So we're going to close that out, and we'll be back to it. So as you can see, I have even more maps than I do on Halo 4. If I combined all of these together, I'd probably have... Now, there's screenshots in the Reach one as well. Wreckage is one of my favorites. That's a racetrack. I'm going to have to show you guys that at some point. But today, I actually had a particular map in mind. I just have to find it. Shouldn't take too long. I just need to go to the R's. So, the request, those are maps that are not mine, but we're looking for it. There's Race 5. So Race 2, I don't think I have a Race 1, at least not anymore. So I need to remember if this was a game type or if this was a... So to know that it's a game type or not, it'll say .sandbox.map. The .map is the important part, and if it's pretty one on the Reek, I don't remember that one. If it's a game type, like Power Slayer here is obviously a game type, but if you look at a game type, it'll say variant. So when you're working with this stuff, that's how to tell if you got it. So we're going to take Race.2. That's not the one in particular that I was looking for, but we're going to come here, and again, you can rename this, but I think we're going to keep it as Race 2 for now, and then we're going to extract selected. And it's already set up for my Halo Reach. Again, PC, whatever dev drive, Steam Library, Steam Apps, Common, MHGF, Halo Reach, and then map_variants. And we're going to save this here. I'm going to rename this one Race 2. I'm going to do Race_2. Now I'll just name it Race 2. Dot. And then again, put the .mvar. And we're gonna hit save. Files successfully explored. I'm gonna leave this open for now. We're going to open up Halo MCC. Now, the reason I went back to the menu is if you want these changes to show up, you'll have to reopen. Every time you do it, you'll have to close that, come back here, and reopen. But now, Race 2 is going to be there. Now, because it's sandbox.map, I know that it's Forge World, and Race 2 will now show up as a built-in game type. I just have to find it. There it is. And as you can see, it says built-in. We're going to select it. Now, obviously, this is a race map, so we're going to go select the race game type. And we'll just do race. We'll leave all this stuff the same, and we'll open this up, and we'll begin the Forge editing. So everyone has a preferred style when it comes to making these maps, and notice a lot of the stuff is already taking a lot of time to explain a lot of it, so I don't remember this map in total. Now, obviously this looks like a bear-based map, and it looks like whatever teenage version of me just slapped this map together, obviously, and we're going to come through and take a look at how bad this map actually is. I do not remember layout of it. Like, it's looking pretty bad right now, right? But it's functional, which by the looks of it is supposed to be a Warthog race, which is actually kind of unique because we don't use Warthogs that often. But what this map is, she's pretty functional. Obviously, I wanted it to go to the water, so I understood the basics of maps. Now, as you can see, older Forge didn't do a lot with this. Like, you can tell I was a beginner at Forge, and a lot of your maps are going to start out like this. I'm surveying out the map because I want to see what younger me had in mind for the ideal of this map, and it looks like it's just your typical, like, oh, you see that right there? That's bad. I didn't use... We're going to be able to fix a lot of this, but some of this is actually, like, a pretty cool concept. Just not done really well. So, what we can do is come back through and fix this all up. Make this grand. So, that's exactly what we're going to do once we get a general idea of the layout of this map. I see what I'm going for here, and there's so many ways that I can make this better. And this right here, I'm already seeing is kind of a problem. And okay, let me go look at that Forge mode. So that's a little weird choice right there. I think in regards to whatever this is, that's gonna get changed up immediately. Like, because if we're gonna fix this map up, I'm going to forge this up together, and we're going to delete everything. You press Y to delete, up on the D-pad to go into mortar, and we're going to delete all of this. This is just no. That's just no. Whatever younger me was thinking, it's not that great. So for the most part, this track's not bad. That's not going to work out too well either, so we're going to end up deleting that, actually. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go ahead and delete all race checkpoints. Once I find the first one, which is like right over here. So we want to keep the base layout of this map, because I can see what we got going on. Delete all. Believe it or not, I think this is when I first started to learn how to make ramps, because this isn't too bad. It's actually a trick that I learned later on. And just surprisingly, isn't even the first racetrack that I've ever had, so... yeah, that teleporter is going to be a problem. Spawn point there, the rest is going bye-bye. The spawns are horribly set up. This isn't going to work. Also, Warthogs are fine for the testing, but for now, they're gone. I'm going to take this spawn and go ahead and get used to using a 45-degree rotation map. By the way, when you're holding an object, Notice your legend on the bottom right there. You're going to hit B to open up this stuff, and you can even use it to edit exact coordinates if you want, but in this case we don't need to worry about that. So we're going to use the fly method and place that there. Now keep in mind that the flight is very different in Halo 5. Like, this stuff is going to work very, very different. I need to delete that teleporter, and then I need to make sure that I take care of everything. I see the idea, and I think I've seen a map that had a similar idea to this. Again, I used a grid here. I'm not sure why. I can probably make this so much better. A lot of the fundamentals of this map will probably change. Like, I see what I had going on here. I will see if I can make this look a little better than it is, because right now that looks horrendous. I may need to pull up a reference for that, but I think I got the majority of the checkpoints taken out, and there is just legit so much more of this. I'm gonna go ahead and delete these. I see what I'm trying to go for in these rocks, so I'm actually gonna go ahead and take an L with this, because it just looks horrible. I don't think I'm gonna be able to shape this fully and properly with it like that. Right now, the base track is what's important. Aesthetics come afterwards when it comes to a racetrack. So obviously the idea of this is it's kind of a Warthog style track. And actually, by doing this here, I'm going to do a quick save. Actually, I don't know if I have the battle track game type. I do have it saved on the drive, but I would think this might do better as a battle track later down in the roads, and I may adjust this, but for now we will leave what I've got going on for this map. Ooh, those are important to delete as well, because these might be changing. So actually, real quick, I'm just gonna go make sure they are all deleted by selecting that, pressing B, and deleting all, so we can get this base weapon going off. Now I'm going to leave this for now, because I consider that a fundamental part of this map, on what we're going to need to do to change these maps. So a lot of this actually is going to be fairly easy to do, and then it'll actually be adding better imagery. So like, obviously this big giant ramp will need to get changed to a degree. And we'll probably make this big giant ramp better. So again, these, while a fundamental part of the map, is going to go away. It's going to get changed. I'm going to leave a lot of that stuff there. Keep in mind, in the next Forge S thing, I'm going to show you guys how to forge using some mods to make things far better. Like, see, you've got these gaps here, which actually gives me an idea for some of the stuff. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take our forge piece here, and we're going to turn on the grid snap. So obviously that's too big of an incline, so we're going to come here and mess with, we want to first get this at a nice flat angle so we know what we're working with, and then we're going to change this to, let's do a 15 degree, and we're going to have it kind of arch into there. Now real quick, I'm gonna make myself an infinite warthog, since that's what this was built with. And actually, I'm gonna go ahead and take it a step further, and we're gonna use the transport hog. Oh yeah, we'll leave it at 15, and spawn, we'll set it to 10 seconds. And just in case it doesn't respawn in 10 seconds, max, oh, I can't adjust that, never mind. Okay. On these versions, you can't mess with those, but, oh yeah. Word of advice, let the vehicle settle before you get into it, like I just did. If you don't, it can sometimes mess the spawn. So notice how that's so much smoother than what it was before, and then obviously this whole ramp is going to end up changing, because it changes a lot of that. So always test your own stuff. you're definitely gonna need it. So automatically we need to 45 a lot of you. Let go. Switch to 15 seems like a safe space. So that's a similar angle, and that's a better angle. Now, I'm not going to use edit coordinates for this just yet. So we're doing all of this by hand right here. Trying to get that as smooth as possible. Excellent, so the Warthog is working correctly. We want to make sure that it's a smooth transition down. So we're going to test this real quick. Make sure it kind of flings us a little hard. So what this tells me is I need to go to a 5-degree angle. Angle this buddy up just by a tad so that the launch, which means I'll need to adjust that a little more. Again, with racetracks, you have to be precise with everything you do. So that means we're also going to take you and nudge you just ever so slightly. And then precision edit this again, just like we did prior. And that should make going at full speed a lot smoother. So keep in mind, racetracks are supposed to be fun. And they need to flow. If they don't have some sort of flow, or see, that feels much better. The dip right there would probably be fine. Alright, so what I'm going to do next is I'm going to create the idea that I got earlier, which occurs on this piece. So we're going to go ahead and turn this back to 15. And we're going to angle you to be slightly there. We're going to angle you up about right there. So it doesn't need to be precise, but in a racetrack it's always better to have the top part that you're receiving on to be up, and then the bottom side can actually have the gap. So if we were coming up, having a gap is actually fine. But when going down, not so much. So now we're going to actually change this to a 45-degree angle. This will auto angle. And we're going to give ourselves a gap. And we're going to place this about right here. I'm going to do an edit coordinates just so that it smooths up a little bit. Because we need to make sure that this racetrack is staying as smooth as possible. These first parts, it's going to be a little hard to make that 100% accurate. So, again, we'll go back to the testing. It's always important to see a little gap there. It's not so bad. So, now, when we put that little jump that I was wanting to do, notice that we were like way far away. This is why I wanted to edit coordinates this, because we're going to need to understand. So this is a fundamental of Forge, and a part where I think people get a lot about Forge wrong, is that they need to understand that everything in a game is on an XYZ axis. So if you can edit like that, you're far better off. So we know we landed about yay so far. So we're going to move this. We'll try about 255 or 155. We're going to drop the height to 17.0. That is my guess. So that is a guess. And that looks potentially too far forwards. So it is an eyeball. So we're going to bring this back. And we're due 2.6. With the momentum and speed that you're supposed to have for this kind of a daring jump, that should be perfect. We should see a better flow. It's obviously a guess, so I may have to come back because we're producing. So yes, I was still too far forwards. Now with the jump, I landed about yay far. So 0.5, 0.6, 7, we're going to do 0.8. These, I'm going to delete these because they're going to get reworked. Warthog, I need you to fall. So this is going to be a fast front jumping section, which will allow me to do some custom editing with this racetrack. So now we gotta wait for this Warthog. Just for the sake of time, we're not gonna wait for that Warthog to respawn, and I'm gonna do minimum count, max count, 1 of 1. What that should do is, upon death, should respawn. Alright, in we go. And now we're gonna give this a test. Soaring speed. Nearly perfect. Alright, rammed into it. So even 0.8 is going to be a bit too far. So we're going to go 57.8 and we'll try that. For typically when you do jumps like this, you just kind of have to see it and understand that the vehicle is going to have momentum, and that's going to be a much bigger dip. So when it comes to the later on iteration, it's actually going to be pretty tough to land this. And look at that, nearly perfect. Well, you could say it's perfect, but we're going to give it about 50.0, a little bit closer, just so that way people who have margin of speed or error can still make it. Because this isn't a picture perfect track, and most people are not going to have speed, so this is going to make this to be a fast section. So we used a 45-degree angle, so we're actually gonna keep a 45 angle for now, and we're gonna go to our structures, and we're going to go to Wall Coliseum and angle this, because if we do a 45, we're gonna be at a similar angle. But first we need to do our bottom piece. This is important to understand the method that I use. We'll go ahead and edit coordinates. And again, this piece will go about the yay under, because this is about where the ramping section would be. Now, however, though, we'll say a 30-degree angle is actually better. Now, obviously, this is very sharp turns. So we're going to come through. We're going to keep this at a 30. And we're going to come through. Keep in mind, further in, tighter the corners, but the same thing going out. So what I'm going to do is place this so that the receiving side has the smoother iteration. Now we're going to do the same thing. Now we're going to go to 15-degree angle and place it so that way. So right now, these are similar. I may need to go down to 5. So we're going to go down to 5. So when working with 5, you do have to be a little careful, because you can get uneven very quick. Now look how much smoother that is beginning to look. I'm going to go ahead and edit coordinates there. It looks pretty smooth, and now we got to do the same thing with the bottom. So a lot of forging is taking your time, because if you rush into forge, you're not going to produce your desired traits. So because based on how this piece works and what I want it to do, I need to make sure that each iteration of this is actually fairly good and transitions into a smooth bottom piece. Now we're going to take a look at this up close. Look how smooth that is, aside from a single motion. So now I'm gonna test this. I'm gonna show you guys how this works. I noticed the other Warthog hasn't respawned. It's not a good sign. Okay, so we're gonna come through, test this at full speed. I had a little bit of margin of error, but I should still make it. And notice how smooth it was, but right there, not so smooth. This is going to allow us to carry momentum. We know that's a 45, so we're going to go a 30-degree angle here. And in this case, the smooth output needs to be... So it looks like we're actually going to have to instantly go to a 15, because I completely forgot that. Since this is the edge grip, I'm actually going to match these two coordinates and then hit edit coordinates, which makes me think that this isn't edit coordinates. This is a little glamped off, but Halo reach is kind of weird like that. So again, we're going to go to 5-degree angle. We need to keep things as smooth as possible. So modifying like this isn't my favorite way to do this. Much smoother. And now we're going to do the same thing here. Edit coordinates. So this should allow for a very smooth transition into the ramp, which also means I can get very much more momentum off that jump. So you got two major jumps going on now. And good, this Warthog has finally responsibly utilized this one. Take a look. There's room for error. Look how smooth that is. And of course our Warthog's gonna dip down like that, so we now know that it lands about a high and that we can work with a 45-degree angle. So what we're going to do is take this and do this, and then you guessed it, we're going to start formulating this. Now this gets a little complicated because first we need to get this ramp going. So let's go see if that other Warthog is available. It is not, so we're not going to wait for it to respawn. It is okay to drop vehicles for testing. Just remember to keep doing this. As a matter of fact, I'm going to do this just in case, for whatever reason, it's just not working. Oh, wait. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Alright, let's go. Alright, so let's begin the race. Or the test race. So we wanted our Warthog to pivot, which is going to make some players go, oh shit. So we can actually rise this several octaves. Let's go to 0.8 and try it there. We can probably go higher. And that'll give us a decent jump height, at least with these. We're gonna come looping through. I'm jumping down, speed on through, hit the ramp. Warthog's looking pretty controlled, and that is like perfect. So just like we did with the other side, we're gonna come through because there's a lot of speed going on with these Warthogs. So you notice if I do it wrong, we're gonna take damage. But we don't want that, so we're gonna come through. We're at a 45-degree angle right now. We're actually gonna keep it on a 45. We're gonna label this to about the height where we need this to be, and I would say just a little bit lower. It's actually gonna give us the better results here. And now, because this track angles at a thing, we're only going to do half a map section. So we're going to put this at 30, and we're going to utilize the same method. this time I'm gonna make sure, instead of being up here where it prioritizes a lot of smooth, I want it to be down a little more, because we've got a downward motion kind of coming from here, which will help prioritize the smoothness of the other map. Now we're going to do this, and again I'm going to bring it down just a tad like that. Now this on its own would be pretty good, but we still need to go through and do a bit of touch up. So we're going to put this at 5, angle that even more. The thing about this is, because you're hitting this pretty hard and fast, you do indeed need to make sure that you're making this as smooth as possible, or your Warthog will indeed take damage. Now, I don't like turning forge pieces like that, because in the past I've had it tended to mess up. That is like perfect right there. You can't even tell, aside from like maybe right here, which that should be smooth enough that we get the momentum that we want. So this right here is a perfect smooth transition, aside from like right here. I think that should be fine. So we're gonna have to test this one more time, because although this is one fast sweeping motion, we need to trial and error it from the beginning so we can understand that this is working. And the projection forward. We're gonna jump down, hit the gap, smooth transition, hit it, and in this case I hit it really fast. Oh boy. So I might need to check that out one more time. Just actually may not necessarily be a bad idea, because in the case somebody hits this track perfectly, I could turn this into a two-way track. So it's always good to test things out multiple times, because sometimes you'll build entire things like I just did and then realize you screwed up. So it's a good idea to see if this is a common thing, or if this is just like because I screwed up. See right here, so much better. So much better in the speed. So I think in the cause, I'm going to try it one more time. See if I can replicate what just happened. That way I can also get a visualization, because this time I'm expecting it, right? Trial and error is kind of important with these kind of things, because in this case, this could allow for an opportunity for a dynamic track. Instead of being a single lane, there could be an upper floor. So here I hit it pretty smoothly, and again I hit it kind of in a similar nature. It is just a little too close, but most people I think are going to have that margin of error hit. So this one is kind of a judgment call on whether you want to keep it or not, because you could adjust for the max speed, but you also got to remember that people are going to have a margin of error in these regards. So the people who actually control and throttle their speed will actually have a better advantage when it comes to this track. So what I'm actually going to do at this point is I'm going to try and alleviate some of the stress that the driver may face when hitting this ramp. So this, actually we're not going to use that one. We're going to go to MCC, we're going to gadgets, one-way shield extra, or that's a two-way. Yeah, that's one. Thought they had a big massive one somewhere. There is these. Let's try this one-way shield 5. No, I don't think that's gonna work. Alright, so yes, we're gonna go back to the biggest one that I know of, and we're gonna obviously paste this to face forwards, and I'm gonna stick this just a little bit ahead. Now we need to replicate the overshot and see if that corrects it. And then we also need to replicate a normal drive or somebody with a margin of error and see if that helps both situations. This is kind of a racing trip that I picked up when making racetracks. Common knowledge like this can still be used in Halo 5. Nearly hit that perfect, but I definitely think we shot pretty far over, and as you can see, it'll slam your vehicle into the ground, which will help keep vehicles in line. So we're going to try this one more time, because I don't think we replicated the quite overshot. This forge is just one of those things you gotta take time with. Zooming through, bounced up, pop. This is definitely it was nearly perfect. Made it, it didn't really slow it down. So I actually think that's gonna help alleviate the problem. For now, we're gonna leave it like that so we know what we're gonna set up, but later on we're gonna come through and adjust this to make this look a lot better. Alright, so now we have this problem. Real quick, let me check the time. We've recorded for about an hour. That's a little excessive here, but that's okay. So real quick, I'm going to get into curving it into this, and then curving it to the next jump that's going to be over here. That's going to make it part of this. Now, for curvature of the pieces of tracks, it is usually not best to use wall coliseums, and hopefully you'll understand why here in a minute, because for this we have to go without grid snap. And this is one of those things where this is why I don't like wall coliseums. Because not only do we have to translate smooth, you have to be fine, precise, and you cannot, I repeat, cannot use the edit coordinates. If you do edit coordinates, you have a potential to mess up the entire track. So in the case, one thing I'm going to mention with these, when you're making them, you want to make sure that this corners on the outside or inside is actually lined up, because the inside line is important rather than the outside. It's always faster to race on the outside line or inside line rather than the outside line. And this is going to be a tough one, considering the direction of the track, because that is going to be a bump in itself. But we're going to have to let that go up like that. Alright, so next we're going to take this piece. And now, the hard part is it's going to start layering itself out. So you're going to have to start cornering pieces. Now, remember what I was talking about? These corners cannot be sticking up. In this case, it is important that these corners, at least in a racetrack, that these are met. As where over here, a gap doesn't matter so much. Now, in regards to this little bump you can see here, we should be able to figure that out at some point, but I think at this current moment, actually, nah, looking at it, we can make that smoother. Because we've got room before we get to the climbing jump. So the rise, see, that looks better. We can work with that. This still rises. Again, I'm going to use the method. We'll try to make it as smooth as possible. That makes it straight, but again, in this case, I do not care about the lip as much as I do over here, because it's turning left into it. So when you're turning left in this case, you can have a gap here and it won't really affect the vehicle so much. Versus if you were doing right, a bump like this would affect the vehicle because the vehicle's off the ground for a lot longer. If it was on this side, it could cause you to spiral off. It'd be easier to show why later on. Now the thing that makes this hard as well is that this is going to start to curve and turn into this direction. So again, using the same method, this would be actually the opposite direction to the other side, because now it's going to start turning right. But we need to get this settled in just right. And this is why one of the few things that I hate Forge about is when you have to work, because you can't truly utilize precision edits until you get it right. I'm actually going to get in closer. See, in this case, it's one of those where you really need to try. In this case, I think that's the closest I'm going to get because of how reach works. And that's going to be a very smooth and awkward point of the transition, and we're nowhere near to going in the direction that we need this to go. We're going to go ahead and keep this place kind of where we want it. So we know that this is the direction that we want it to go, and we're going to line up that corner, and we're going to angle this. Doesn't matter if it's going up, because we're going up to a point where we can potentially reset what we got going on here. Again, we want this angled up as much as possible, with as little gaps like this as possible. So I think in this case, the tiniest little gap without that peeking through will be the best for the track, just because of how sharp that this needs to go. Now what I am going to do is turn on grid snap. 45, 30. We like most ramped pieces to have at least a 15-degree ramp, sure, a ramp off, which puts this at a slightly bad angle, but we can let go and then potentially turn on a 5-degree angle and make an edit so minuscule. You gotta bring this forwards to where the piece on the right side lines up, and this gives us a single 5-degree angle that we can start working with. So when we do the actual next part of the ramp, we can actually work with a 5% angle, which then can later help us transition to a 15, to a 30, and to a 45 for a lot smoother transition as we get to this point of the track and we run through. So as you can see, these are the changes we made from the original. Fortunately, I'm not going to be able to show the completion of the full map in this single video, but we're going to go through and show you the test changes of this particular map. Now that we've got it going, let's go. Let's see how smooth this feels. Now, most people are not going to drive as smooth as I do, so there's always got to be room for margin of error when you make your maps. And as you can see, it's pretty nice, it's pretty smooth. Even here where I was skeptical, bit of a drop, and we still have a motion. And now, even this piece here isn't too bad. Like this, in this case, I think isn't too bad because the Warthog doesn't slam so hard. In some cases, you can utilize harder pieces, and I'm going to utilize a few cool tricks when it comes to this part. Actually, it'll be kind of like a roller coaster like track. So as a mark, I'm going to, for the next video, I'm going to leave a satellite to tell me, hey, this is about where the Warthog landed. So that's going to be the little mark of the Argent. Anyway guys, so in today's video, that's kind of the introductory to Forge. We're going to be continuing on the next one to use this racetrack to get you guys into forging and how to make Forge. Ultimately, the takeaway from this video is understanding that you need to take your time. Ultimately, with Forge pieces, even basic Forge editors such as Halo Reach, is very important that you take your time, because if you do not take your time when building maps, making maps, you'll end up with a lot of errors. Like you saw this map when I first started out as a teenage version of myself. It's also important utilizing and being aware of your tooltips and stuff like that. I often leave my tooltips on, especially for Halo 5, and I'm going to definitely do so for Halo Reach. There's no shame in having those stuff on. It's sometimes impossible to memorize all this stuff, but in a span of an hour, we managed to smooth about 1/3 of this map into success, and we have a lot of space for decorative. And we'll obviously get into decorative a little bit later, and then at some other point we will either try a different game or we will look at other versions of Halo and try to make similar style maps or different style maps. Keep in mind that when you're building your maps, each map is going to have different tips and tricks when it comes to making what it is you intend to make. Like again, like with the shield thing, you can use shields in this method to control the impact landing of a Warthog or a Mongoose, etc. It helps people. Like in the case with the ramp, you can't really fix that, because most people are going to hit this smoothly, while the really fast drivers are going to overshoot and it can ruin their race. In a maybe tournament style map, I wouldn't have this shield used at all, because people who understand when to slow down and throttle will be a little bit better. But the idea of this track is to be a lot of fun. So in the next video, guys, we will go through and utilize some other techniques that I have learned. Right now, you guys learned about how to smooth out Forge pieces when you want curvatures like this in your map. And yes, you're going to have all this bougie underneath. If you got like Halo 5 where you have smaller pieces, you won't have that kind of stuff. And limitations on each editor that changes how that content is developed and how you make this content. So right now, this is just like your basics into race editing, and different methods such as invasion and all that is also important. But yeah, again, if like you were doing a Slayer map, you have a 3-lane method. When you're doing an invasion map, it's usually 2-lane or a single lane, and then with like the progression of escalation, and then you got racetracks, which is usually smooth run out pieces with aesthetics placed around. Anyway, like I said, in the next video we'll get into some more techniques, and I'll also show you guys how to utilize modding and Forge to make truly customizable maps. And I think that'd be a great direction to go. If I don't do that, I'll have something that's even better for the video at the moment. But I'm going to show you guys how to utilize other Forge pieces to create a unique scenario, because I have a particular idea for this area. Anyway, Static Gamers, if you did enjoy this video, don't forget to hit that like button, motivate me to make more videos just like this one, and we'll obviously see you in the next video. If you haven't yet as well, feel free to subscribe. I definitely plan to do more Forge videos, especially when Halo Infinite releases Forge. I plan to critique Forge, as I want Forge to become the ultimate tool editor for Halo. Right now, Fortnite Creative is leaps ahead of Halo's Forge, and with rumors of Call of Duty getting creative mode, I think it's really important that Halo steps up probably the one thing that's going to be the future of Halo Infinite, and that's Forge. I'm already excited about the script changes but we'll see other things. Anyway, this is Nathaniel S5496 signing out.